Mercenary groups, they're far from non-existent in our modern world. But the same can't be said about child soldiers. Well, enter the religious fanatic cult known as Dead Mansion, shattering the norms and fusing both those concepts to create the perfect child mercenaries for sale. This is the story of one such child, of how he rises above his programming, and how he comes to have a heart, not for his own sake, but for the family he's found. This mansion is where our story begins as an unseen person speaks of how their children are good, angelic even, the sort that can't be found anywhere else. As a giant sleazeball of a man walks up to these children, it's revealed these children are given to special parents who can't have kids of their own. Like hell, I'd recognize that ugly bastard face anywhere. Dude's a creep. As the sleazeball leads away the child he has adopted, the unknown voice explains these kids have been given special education. Right at the moment he says this, the seemingly warm nun standing by the children transforms into a cold machine of a person, as do the kids themselves, each brandishing lethal weapons to train with. Even the saddest of the children now dons a straight face as the nun tells her to avoid making her nose run, while faking tears, as the child accepts this order without any emotion. The speaker of the unknown voice is finally shown. Watching the proceedings from a window up above, this elderly, bespectacled man explains how these kids are raised to be weapons from birth. Nurtured under a special discipline officer, their edge is sharpened to perfection. Hot damn, if that ain't one hell of a muscle mommy though. The old man goes on to explain that what the children are used for is 100% up to their buyers. As he says this, the child that was just adopted sits in a car with the sleazeball as he shows him an assassination target while stroking his leg. Called it, dude's a turbo creep. To ensure the children's obedience, the old priest explains that they have 3 absolute principles imprinted on them from early on. Back in the car, the child tries to warn his new father about a suspicious vehicle, but he's ordered to focus on his target. This is the first principle. The parents' words are absolute, and so, all the child can do and say is nothing, as their car is attacked and turned over in an instant. Even as he sits by his buyer with blood streaming down his face, the boy follows the second principle. No force or action is to be applied without the parents' permission. However, as hitmen approach the overturned car and move to confirm their target's death, the boy plays the victim so they may get close, and he may act on the third principle. If a threat to the parents' safety arises, all bets are off. Just like that, the boy stabs through one assailant's throat and shoots the other clean through the skull. Back at the mansion, the priest finally drops his facade of warmth and reveals the rows of glittering gemstones he has for teeth, displaying a catalog of children, and asking which of them seems most purchasable. As his conversation with himself continues, the man brings up the file of a child that was lost to them years ago. The most promising product they've ever produced, and yet he was lost to them. And thanks to the 3 principles he continues to follow, it has been impossible to find the child, or for him to contact the mansion. The twisted priest can only wonder if the child is now living and hiding as a regular kid, or if he's already dead. Right as he says this, the scene shifts to that of a young man, matching the picture from the file, if not significantly older. This boy, Hein Ho, is currently in the process of being beaten to a pulp by bullies from his class, as the leader continues to torment him, forcing him to give his attacks a score. One of the bullies forces his way past the leader, Yusuf, to have a try of his own. Unlike the others, Hein Ho doesn't seem afraid of this boy, Park Sheen. Meanwhile, Yusuf is pissed at Sheen for pushing him and punches the boy with full force. Despite his fists shaking with rage, the blonde bully just sucks up to Yusuf with a smile, pacifying him and making him walk away in amusement. Kinda pathetic, but hey, if it works, it works. Once the others are gone, Sheen proceeds to rough Hein Ho up a bit before forcing the boy to treat him to a meal. It's here that Hein Ho becomes more afraid than ever because the store they've arrived at is owned and run by his own mother, something he never wanted those bullies to be able to take advantage of. With a furious expression on his face, Hein Ho grips a pen in his balled fist and prepares to take Sheen out here and now, if he's going to be a threat to his parents. Before he can go through with it though, Sheen actually bows down to his mom and greets her with a level of respect you never expect from a delinquent. As the two start getting along, Hein Ho still isn't convinced and tries to get them away from the shop, but not before his mom offers Sheen some free takeout and thanks him for being Hein Ho's friend. Throughout all this, the dark-haired boy is in constant turmoil, not wanting his mom to be nice to this guy, but also not wanting to tell her the truth of his suffering. As Sheen moves to leave, it's all Hein Ho can do to grab him and silently beg that he not tell Yusuf and the others about this place. Though Sheen says he'll abide by that, he also tells his mom that he'll come with his friends next time, sending Hein Ho's mind into a downward spiral. After Sheen leaves, Hein Ho gives in to all his pent-up rage and aggression, and ends up screaming at his mother for not acting like a stranger, like he's told her before. Even as the old woman apologizes, Hein Ho can feel his heart breaking at how he's hurting her when all he wants is to protect his mom. Unfortunately, that hope goes out the window the next day when he arrives at school, only to see Yusuf and the others making fun of some food from his mom's shop. Little by little, he feels himself reaching a breaking point as Yusuf threatens him in various ways, dumping the food on his head and saying he'll go to his mom himself. Furious with both Sheen for betraying him and Yusuf for his threats, Hein Ho breaks and brings his fist with a sharp pen clenched in it right at Yusuf's throat. At the last second, though, he remembers his mom's desire for him to get along with his friends, and his hand stops by force. With his attempt at revenge thwarted, Hein Ho now faces a more furious Yusuf than ever before. Not much later, Sheen finally arrives at class only to see police officers, a shattered window, and a puddle of blood instead of Hein Ho. As it turns out, Hein Ho was beaten for 15 minutes straight. After begging for forgiveness and barely being conscious, he saw the window next to him, and he ended things himself. Wait, what? Ain't no way the MC just dipped like that, right? That evening, Yusuf can be seen pressuring some underclassmen to take the fall for his crime, since they'll be tried as juvenile offenders unlike him. Not only does he offer them 10 million won per person, he also promises they won't be sued, because once he's done tonight, there won't be anyone to sue them in the first place. With that, he only has one question. Who knows where Hein Ho's house is? Later on, in the darkness of the night, Yusuf and his lackeys arrive at Hein Ho's apartment building, fully armed with baseball bats and steel pipes. Upon seeing the elevator stuck on Hein Ho's floor, they decide to take the stairs, not knowing this has been planned by someone else. Once they get there, though, they see the elevator jam open with a fire extinguisher and a hooded figure waiting for them. As Yusuf stares at this person, the light from the elevator illuminates their face enough for him to recognize Park Shiam with a dead expression. Ignoring everything they're saying with barely veiled contempt, Sheen stands and asks only two questions. 1. How'd they find the Hein Ho snack shop? Yusuf says they followed Sheen when they found him feeding some neighborhood kids instead of getting his cigarettes, and from there they found Hein Ho yelling at his mom. Realizing that this is his fault, Sheen goes quiet for a moment before asking his second question. What are they here for? Without missing a beat, Yusuf starts bragging about how they're here to put Hein Ho's mom to sleep, and how he plans to get some revenge on Sheen as well, for always trying to discreetly protect Hein Ho. I'll be right back, I need to reread some stuff to check. Throughout all this, Sheen simply walks to the elevator, grabs the fire extinguisher, and empties its contents at the bullies. Then, without any warning, he proceeds to beat the crap out of the goons before advancing on Yusuf himself. Thinking fast, he shoots the fire extinguisher down at Yusuf's foot with full force, breaking the bone instantly. As the bully tries to crawl away, Sheen closes in on him while reciting the 3 principles imprinted on the dead mansion's children. As he punches Yusuf into the ground, he grabs the bully's collar and brings up his battered face before reciting the 3rd principle. If there's a threat to the parent, a child can disregard all other rules to protect them. Then, while snapping apart Yusuf's finger, he declares that Hein Ho's mother said all of her son's friends are like her own children. So now, with the threat to his mom right in front of him, Hein Ho can put them in their place without hesitation. Okay, yeah, that was the fake out of the decade. I really thought Hein Ho was the missing kid too. Back at Dead Mansion, the director receives a phone call informing him that the lost legend of Dead Mansion, codenamed Shawn, has been discovered in Korea. With the news of Shawn's discovery, the old priest reminisces on the glory brought to him by the boy's perfection. The ultimate infiltrator, weapons expert, assassin, and more all in one package. And so, he was to be sold to a VIP client in the Japanese Yakuza. However, due to some delivery error, Shawn was sent to Korea instead, and has been missing ever since. In the 5 years since then, the priest believed him dead and gave up, but now he can hardly contain himself, as he overflows with joy at the news of his survival. At his command, the nun who acts as the instructor for all the children here, Rachel, is sent to retrieve Shawn, with strict orders to leave him unharmed, no matter how awesome it'd be to be stepped on by her. Wait, no, I mean, Anyways, over at Hein Ho's snack shop, the boy's mother is greeted by Yusuf's father, Kwon Byung-woo. Though he bows to her and apologizes for his son's actions while promising to pay Hein Ho's medical bills, the old woman can tell he's far from remorseful. When she tells him some things can't be resolved with a simple apology, the man shows his true colors, turning his back on her and declaring that it'll find some other way to settle their case, without wasting any more time here. On the drive away from the shop, Byung-woo asks his lackeys about that kid, wondering if he's been taken care of. The driver simply tells him Secretary Oh's handling it. After reaching the hospital, Byung-woo goes to his son's room and proceeds to have the room emptied, as Yusuf starts ranting about the three principals. Now that they're alone, the man smacks his son without remorse, telling him he doesn't care about any of the harm he caused. No, what he's mad about is that Yusuf didn't finish the job and go through with killing Hein Ho's mom like he should have. Yeesh, father of the year everybody. Meanwhile, in a dank alleyway, Sheen can be seen being held up and brutally beaten by Byung-woo's men, in retaliation for what he did the other night. As the head thug pummels him into the ground, he talks down to Sheen about how just because he beats some of his peers doesn't mean he can deal with adults. Oh pal, if only you knew. Unable to fight back without Hein Ho's mom ordering it, Sheen just takes it quietly, even when the men break his arm. Later on, after the men have left, Sheen resets his arm, revealing that the incompetent thugs didn't even break it properly, dislocating the limb instead. Not sure how medically plausible that is, but sure. As he walks out of the alley, Sheen laments how the three principals are holding him back and wonders if he'll have to get a new identity after this. Just then, he's spotted by none other than Hein Ho's mom, who forces him to come with her and have some food, since she's worried about how haggard he looks. There, Sheen has his already confirmed suspicions further solidified when the woman tells him to eat plenty, and it triggers the first principle within him. She is his parent now. Afterward, as she's preparing more food, the mother tries to keep her composure and assures Sheen that Hein Ho will be fine. However, as she thinks about what she believes to be her failure as a mother, the old woman breaks down in tears, screaming that she wants to crush and tear apart Yusuf's father as he did to her son. When she turns to apologize to Sheen for her outburst, though, the boy is nowhere to be found, and the mother is blissfully unaware of the orders she's just given him. Oh hell yeah, now this is gonna be good. That night, Byung-woo Construction is having a company meeting slaw dinner, where Byung-woo is the host. As he's making a speech, sucking himself and his company off, a commotion suddenly rises when a waiter smashes a wine bottle into the face of one of his lackeys. A guard moves to intercept the waiter, now revealed to be Sheen, but the boy incapacitates him with a couple of mugs and proceeds to kick his teeth out. With forks and knives held between his fingers, Sheen takes down several more men, before hiding under a table as the lights all come on. As he gashes out from his cover and slices through multiple men, determined to uphold the first principle, Sheen slowly makes his way toward Byung-woo himself. One after another, he takes out all the guards coming at him, using the tablecloths and furniture around him as weapons. The only one to even pose a challenge is Secretary Oh from earlier in the day. Unfortunately for him, Sheen's serious this time, as evidenced by his appearance inside Oh's guard in the middle of his monologue and subsequent snapping of the man's arm. Finally, the only one left is Byung-woo himself, standing high above with a pistol in his hand as he fires a warning shot at Sheen. Despite having the high ground, the absolute moron decides to forfeit his advantage and makes his way down to within arm's reach of Sheen. God knows what his plan was, but he's screwed. Within moments of realizing why Sheen's here, Byung-woo starts insulting Hein Ho Snacks and the old lady, not realizing he's signing his own death warrant. About half a second later, Sheen tells him the lady asked him not to kill Byung-woo, but to tear and crush him apart. Before the man can react, he finds his jaw being crushed by a swift elbow, followed by a nose-shattering punch to the face. As he walks away from the beaten Byung-woo, Sheen hears the fool still talking smack and threatening his mom. However, Sheen is unbothered. After all, he's here to uphold the third principle as well. With a single shot of the gun he retrieved from Byung-woo, Sheen releases the chandelier hanging right above Byung-woo, leaving him to a grisly end. At the same time as these events are occurring, a nurse arrives at Yusuf's hospital room to check on him, seeming completely normal at first. However, that quickly changes when she aggressively questions him about what he mentioned earlier in the day. The three absolute principles he was talking about, where did he hear them? As the boy struggles to provide an answer, the nurse reveals she's poisoned him and will let the boy die if he doesn't answer her. Pulling off the wig she's wearing, the nurse reveals herself to actually be Dead Mansion's disciplinarian, Rachel, and she asks only one more question. Does he know a boy named Shawn? After tracking Shawn's movements all the way to the Byung-woo Construction meeting massacre, Rachel reports back to the director on how it seems Shawn is acting outside the parameters of the three absolute principles, with there being no precedent for such a case and the potential for all their past, present, and future children to turn on them. The director orders Rachel to find Shawn and determine the reason for his actions at all costs. And so, the Dead Mansion's disciplinarian finds herself undercover at Shens School, pretending to be a substitute teacher, all while taking a sick and perverse pleasure in being near her precious Shawn again. Unfortunately, her image of the boy is greatly ruined when she finds Sheen to be nothing like the Shawn she remembers. Despite always coming out on top during battles of dominance at the mansion, here he's a weakling who gets beaten. Despite being the top student at the mansion and excelling in academics, the only thing in his notebooks now are terrible doodles. At every turn, Rachel finds herself desperately hoping that this boy isn't her Shawn. After spending some time regaining her composure in the restroom, she switches out her disguise for that of a student and follows Sheen out of the school once classes are out. As she follows him, Rachel finds the boy running into none other than Hein Ho's mother and witnesses him dutifully helping her carry some stuff back to her shop. Not only that, he eats everything she gives him, drinks when she tells him to, slows down when she orders it, and does it all with a smile on his face. Taking her own plate of snacks from the woman so as to not seem suspicious, Rachel suddenly finds her mouth burning with the fury of 1,000 suns at how spicy the food is. Thinking back to how much Shawn struggled with spicy food as a kid, she can only feel bad for him being stuck in this country of fiery cuisine. However, that's when she spots something curious. The boy next to her, Sheen, suspected to be Shawn, is clenching his fist as he struggles with all his might to down the old woman's food. As she observes him doing this, continuing to suffer on purpose, just because the woman asked him to, something clicks in Rachel's mind. Back on the street, after getting here, even now, this boy is following the woman's every command because he's acting under the first absolute principle. If that's true, this boy truly is Shawn, and he hasn't gone rogue after all. In order to confirm her theory, Rachel grabs a sharpened chopstick and launches it straight at the old woman's neck at inhuman speeds. And yet, despite the suddenness of the action, the chopstick finds itself caught in the prongs of a fork held by Sheen. Without waiting for another second, the boy leaps over the counter and grabs Rachel by the face before getting the hell out of the area, leaving Hein Ho's mom as confused as ever. In a dank alleyway, the two members of Dead Mansion can now be seen going at it, Rachel doing her best to push Sheen, and the boy simply trying to stop her. Finally, sick of her games, Sheen grabs her arms, holds her in place, and asks her by name how long she plans to follow him around. Realizing that he'd seen through her disguises from the start, Rachel drops the act and greets Sheen with a perverse blush and smile, showing the yandere she truly is. Upon confirming her suspicions completely, Rachel asks Sheen about the one thing she still can't figure out. Why is he following that woman from the snack shop as if she's his parent? When Sheen refuses to answer, the woman dashes at him and performs a textbook perfect shoulder throw on him, slamming him into the ground and mounting him. Ayo pause. That's a minor woman, as Rachel tells Sheen that it's time to go back for all their waiting clients. Sheen has a flashback of his time at the Dead Mansion. In the middle of the memory he's remembering, Sheen suddenly has another flashback to a memory of a bloodied woman, giving him his Korean name with a smile on her face. Confused by this unfamiliar memory which he can't recognize, Sheen rises up and headbutts Rachel with all his strength, allowing him to escape and flee from her. While Sheen races off and struggles to remember who that woman in his memory is, Rachel enters a fashion store's fitting room and reports everything back to the director. As she starts changing out of her disguise, she tells him about how Shawn is still operating under the three principles and has accepted an old lady as his parent. Wait, no, go back. I just want to check something real quick. Since the woman doesn't seem to be controlling Shawn on purpose though, the director tells Rachel to verify her theory and get Shawn back through one of two methods. As Rachel steps out of the dressing room in a whole new disguise, looking like an older businesswoman, she heads to Hein Ho's snack shop to try the first method. There, she impersonates Sheen's mother and tells Hein Ho's mom to stop bothering him when she's away on business trips. In her words, he shouldn't be in such a low-quality place, let alone eating spicy food he can barely stomach. Hein Ho's mother can only show remorse upon learning that Sheen's been eating food that bothers him just for her sake. As she ponders on Rachel's words, the disguised operative discreetly smirks. This is the first method, for the parent to voluntarily relinquish ownership of the child. Rising from her seat, Rachel tells Hein Ho's mom that if Sheen comes here again, she should tell him to go back home and never come here again. Certain that the old woman is guilty enough to listen, Rachel turns to leave. Right at the last moment, though, she's halted by the old woman suddenly launching into a lecture on how she should know the state Sheen is always in, with his clothes dirty and his face beat up. If she's never at home and her son is suffering like that, if he's suffering the same way Hein Ho always was, then there's no way she can turn her back on the child. Infuriated at the woman's persistence, Rachel starts yelling at her, but Hein Ho's mom is firm in her decision, simply bowing down to apologize. Later that night, Rachel speaks to the director while switching disguises again and gets approval to pursue the second method of retrieval. That is, if the parent is to die, the child's ownership automatically reverts to the dead mansion. The next day, Hein Ho's mom is shopping peacefully at a local minimart, blissfully unaware of the deadly woman observing her from just one aisle over, with a detonator in her fist. As Rachel's anger at the woman rises, she presses the detonator, causing the back of the store to explode in flames and chaos to break out as everyone flees. From behind a rack, Rachel aims her suppressed pistol at Hein Ho's mom and fires, aiming for a clean headshot. Right at the last moment, however, none other than Shawn bursts onto the scene, deflecting her bullet with a frying pan he picked up while rushing over. Jesus, talk about winging it. Bro's lucky that thing was iron. As he locks eyes with Rachel, Shawn tosses the pan aside and approaches her, commenting that he expected her to pull something like this. Upon her ignoring of his words and repeated attempts to shoot Hein Ho's mom, Shawn desperately crashes into the rack between them and knocks it over, forcing Rachel to get out of the way. With his parent in danger, the third principle is in play, and Shawn is able to use force, kicking Rachel's gun clean out of her hands and engaging her in melee combat. As Rachel slashes across Shawn's chest with a knife, crimson red liquid flows onto the ground like a waterfall. Luckily, it's just ketchup from a can Shawn grabbed and blocked her attack with. Thank heavens the chapter didn't end on that cliffhanger. Shawn quickly makes a move to knee Rachel's face, but the woman who taught him all he knows sees it coming and trips him up, tossing him into the fallen racks. As she looms over him with a wicked glint in her eyes, Rachel asks Shawn if he remembers her teachings about fighting only ever being the means, not the end. Over with Hein Ho's mom, while Rachel is keeping Shawn busy, she rushes towards a crying child who seems to have lost his mother. Full of kindness as she is, the woman tries to help the boy, all the while completely unaware of the dagger gripped in his offhand. Well, they're screwed. Back with Shawn, he dodges a stab from Rachel, before taking a defensive stance, wondering what the hell she's implying the purpose of this fight is. As she comes at him, Shawn continues to weave through her slashes, before grabbing her wrist and bringing them to an impasse. At that moment, as Rachel admits that this is an operation to liberate him, Shawn realizes what's going on and loses concentration for a second. That's all Rachel needs to get a slash in, slicing Shawn's cheek open. As he runs across the aisle with Rachel chasing him, she calls out that he's nothing more than the dead mansion's possession, a product. That gets to Shawn more than anything else she could have said. With his eyes shadowed, the boy tosses a sack of flour in the path of Rachel's next slash, creating a cloud of powder around her that makes it hard to see. Taking full advantage of this, Shawn comes in hot, wielding a pair of scissors in a way only a true master assassin could. Not only does he give Rachel a terrible haircut, he proceeds to get rid of her knife and shoulder throws her cleanly into a shopping cart. Then, as she glares up at him, Shawn asks why he would ever want to go home to a family that calls him a product. Plus, if he's nothing more than a product, isn't she the same? As he says that, he pushes the cart she's in towards the others and locks her inside, bringing the metaphor full circle. Bro's a poet, apparently. With Rachel taken care of, Shawn races to his mom's location and butts in just moments before the kid can use his dagger. Luckily, the kid is afraid enough for Shawn's reputation to recognize he can't harm her in his presence. As his mom frets over Shawn's condition, he assures her and asks about the kid. Upon hearing her version of the story, he approaches the boy and pretends to be helping him. All the while he picks him up and silently whispers a phrase to him, so the boy knows Shawn can see through him. After threatening the boy for his direct line to the director, Shawn knocks the kid out with a jab at his neck, forcing him to drop his dagger. Late that night, back at Dead Mansion, the director is awoken from his slumber by his personal line ringing. Something that's not only unusual, but strictly discouraged by the man himself, and whoa, where was he hiding all that beef? Upon answering the phone in nothing but his boxers, the beefcake of a priest can practically feel his heart skip a beat when he hears none other than Shawn's voice on the other end. As the two speak about the situation, Sheen vows to uphold the third principle and protect his mother, even if it's from Dead Mansion themselves. Hearing this, rather than being upset, the director is overcome with joy, falling to his knees in reverence for one who is so faithful to the three principles. Once he's over that little episode, the director tells Sheen that if he sends back the child, Eugene, then they'll back off from his mom. With their deal made, Sheen wakes Eugene up to go meet Rachel in an hour's time. Before that, though, he decides to treat the kid to his mom's snacks. Despite his attempt at acting like he's too good for the stuff, Eugene ends up chowing down like no tomorrow, leading to much teasing from Sheen. Once they reach their meeting point with Rachel, Sheen tries to hand him a takeout bag, wanting the kid to at least have something nice. Unfortunately, Rachel scares the boy too much for him to accept, and the two move to leave. Sheen turns back too, but right as he's leaving, he hears something he can't ignore. That is, Rachel threatening Eugene with disposal for failing yet again. Oh God, he's gonna do it, isn't he? Turning back to the Dead Mansion operatives, Sheen calls out to Eugene and asks him one final time if the Hein Ho shop's snacks were tasty. Tears streaming down his face, the child turns back to Sheen and simply says that they are tasty. Just like that, Sheen's mind is made up and he looks the kid in the eyes with a smile and a promise. They're going to go there again. Oh damn it, he's doing it. A quick look into Eugene's past reveals he's something of the black sheep of Dead Mansion. With 4 of his assigned parents having died despite his presence, he has been given an ultimatum by the director. Either he does well on this latest assignment to retrieve Sheen, or he gets disposed of like all the other kids in the Dead Mansion cemetery. Wow, that got dark fast. In the present, or rather a few moments prior, we see Eugene's side of the interaction with Sheen. After being told by Rachel that he'll be disposed of, he silently begs for just one more chance, not expecting to get one. However, when Sheen shows his hand in taking Eugene back, Rachel realizes the opportunity before them and tells Eugene he has one last chance. If he can kill Shawn's parent, he'll be in the clear. That is what was going through Eugene's mind as he turned to Sheen with tears and told him the Hein Ho snacks were tasty. When Sheen declares that he's taking Eugene back, Rachel doesn't even bother putting up a fight. However, she does leave him with a promise to be back for his parent, so he doesn't get suspicious of Eugene. As the child walks towards Sheen, he embraces the kid's hand and vows to crush Rachel as many times as he must. Mom, this is such a terrible idea. Not even an hour later, Sheen realizes that I'm right because he's ended up at the Hein Ho residence with Eugene tagging along with him. When he expresses his frustration, his mom just reminds him he promised to look after the kid for a day. Unable to refute the cover story, Sheen tries to play it off as embarrassment at imposing on her so much. And to be fair, that is a factor for him. After Mom reassures them that it's fine, she even tells them to stay the night, which Eugene instantly accepts, despite Sheen's protests. Unknown to either of the others, Eugene's mind is laser-focused on his task to kill the old woman. Now, as the child makes conversation with the old woman, Sheen is hit with the reality of just where he is. Upon spotting the door to Hein Ho's room, he asks the boy's mom if he can go inside, to which she happily tells him to go ahead. When he's in there, Sheen can't help but ponder on how it's the picture-perfect room of an ordinary boy, from an ordinary family living a life of ordinary happiness. All things that he's longed for and yet knows he cannot have. And then there's the regret over allowing what happened to Hein Ho to occur. Meanwhile, Eugene decides now is the perfect time to take the hag out while Sheen is busy. As he reaches for his hidden gun, the boy asks the woman about her family. Though the conversation starts with Hein Ho's late father, the topic quickly steers to Hein Ho himself and Eugene's drilled-in beliefs on how one must prove themselves to be of value for their family to care about them. Beliefs about how anyone who can't pull their weight is worthless and a waste of resources. Hearing such words from such a young boy, Hein Ho's mother is quick to get upset and tell Eugene he's absolutely wrong. And that's not at all what a true family is. Preach Mama Bear. Staring up at the woman with confusion, Eugene has just asked what a family is then, when Sheen rushes in and grabs the kid, preventing his mom from answering. Roughhousing with the kid all the way to the living area, Sheen asks his mom's permission to sleep there, not wanting to take Hein Ho's room or bother her. Though she wants them to take the bed, Sheen adamantly plops down on the sofa and tells Eugene to take the floor, bringing a smile to his mom's face. Hours later, once everyone is asleep, Eugene lies awake, unable to sleep on the hard floor and unwilling to miss his chance, creeping out of his futon while making sure not to wake Sheen. the child moves towards Hein Ho's bedroom door, where he can see light coming out from. Peeking inside, he spots the old woman asleep at her son's desk, holding onto a picture of them together. Seeing this, Eugene is more confused than ever. How is it that such a useless boy can still be called family by this woman? Hell, even the kindness she's shown him feels so unearned that he can't understand it. Standing there in the doorway, Eugene finds himself locked in turmoil, his upbringing and mission clashing with the seed of warmth that Hein Ho's mother has sown within him. Holding his gun at eye level, Eugene continues to tremble like a leaf in a hurricane, all the way until the door is closed in his face and the furious eyes of Sheen look down into his own with disappointment. Now the boy has but one question for Eugene. Is this really his final decision? Yeah, that kid's done for. Ain't no coming back from this. With the worst case scenario for his mission coming true, Eugene is left trembling even more than before. Making a split-second decision, he turns his gun on Shawn and pulls back the trigger, while aiming right at his face. Except, nothing happens, because the bullets that are supposed to be inside Eugene's gun have been in Shawn's hand for a while now. Holy balls, that's so cold. As he dumps the bullets onto the floor, Shawn asks the kid just how careless he is to not notice the lack of weight to the gun, considering those were 9mm rounds. Upon hearing Shawn call him an amateur, Eugene snaps and leaps at the older boy with a hidden knife. When Shawn effortlessly grabs and slams the kid in Hein Ho's door, Eugene takes the chance to push it open and rush inside, straight towards his mom. Seeing that she's asleep, Shawn pleads with Eugene to be quiet, but that's far from the kid's main concern. As he dashes for the old woman, Shawn grabs a tie from nearby and trips up Eugene with it. Thinking fast, the kid slices the tie away and glares at Shawn, who isn't the least bit threatened. Eugene uses Hein Ho's bed as a launch pad and lunges at Shawn, but the older boy holds back the kid's wrists with just the tie in his hands. After Shawn pushes him off, Eugene realizes that he's going easy on him and angrily jumps back at Shawn, demanding that he take this seriously. You asked for it, kid. Sure enough, Shawn decides to give him what he wants and proceeds to dismantle Eugene within seconds, disarming him, tripping him up, and grabbing him by the shirt, so this fall doesn't wake up his mom, all while catching Eugene's thrown blade while it's midair. If sauce was a physical thing, Shawn would be drenched in it right now. Right as Eugene's convinced it's all over and looking up at Shawn in awe, a new fighter enters the fray, smacking Shawn's head hard enough to make him drop Eugene. This fighter is none other than Hein Ho's mom. The old lady's furious at both boys for fighting at all, let alone at such an ungodly hour. As she scolds them, Shawn struggles to convince her they are just exercising, with even Eugene playing along as he knows he stands no chance while Shawn is here. What shocks the boy to his core, however, is what Hein Ho's mom says at the end of her scolding. She tells the boy that they're family. When Eugene questions this, Hein Ho's mom tells him again that after they've eaten together and slept under the same roof, they're nothing else but family. A blush of embarrassment overtakes his cheeks, and the child simply lowers his gaze and stands before the old woman in silence. Moments later, a voice calls out to everyone from outside the apartment. The person at the door turns out to be a young woman named Marie, who claims to be Eugene's big sister, here to pick him up and thank them. As soon as Shawn hears of who's here though, he realizes Marie is far from what she seems. Lazy smirk on his face, Shawn asks her what exactly she's here for, to which Marie claims she came to ensure the old woman's safety and retrieve Eugene, as that was their deal. Seeing Shawn's suspicion, Marie tells him Eugene's mission to kill his mother was given by Rachel herself, without approval from the director. Still unconvinced, Shawn tells Marie to get rid of her hidden knife if she's so honest, something which truly impresses the young lady. As the girl starts threatening Shawn to no avail, Eugene himself comes racing out and greets Marie with a smile and a hug, proving her story to Hein Ho's mom. Since he's closer to the two than the old woman, Shawn hears the two speaking about how Marie disrupted Eugene's plan to gain this family's trust. As such, he also overhears when they start flaming the crap out of his appearance and personality and develops a twitch of the eye. Convinced that the boy is right, Marie apologizes to Eugene, but also reassures him that another plan is already in the works. For now, it's time for them to retreat. With that, the fake siblings take their leave, Hein Ho's mom waving them goodbye. Before they walk too far, she calls out to Eugene and tells the boy to come back again sometime. Then, she'll make the omelet he loves so much again. God, this woman is too precious for the world. Turning his head with the faintest of smiles, Eugene tells the woman that he'll be sure to do that. Watching the siblings walk away, Hein Ho's mom tells Sheen as well to bring Eugene along next time he comes over. Though his expression is that of an unreadable mask, Sheen maintains a warm attitude toward the woman and promises to do just that. The next morning, Hein Ho's mother arrives at the principal's office at her son's school for a meeting. Here, the old man who runs the institute finally apologizes to her for what happened to her child, all while sweating bullets with nervousness. Handing over a file to the mother, he tells her the parents of all the perpetrators have promised to compensate for any damages, and all offending children will be suspended. With the matter mostly settled, the principal then asks the woman if she would like to see the perpetrators or not. Before she can give an answer, Hein Ho's mother sees something she would have never imagined in a million years. There, in the middle of the photos of the perpetrators, is a picture of none other than Park Sheen, and it's all she can do to pick it up and shakily ask the principal why in the world his picture is here. Earlier, the director and Rachel discussed the latest developments in Shawn's retrieval over the phone. As she apologizes for Eugene's failure to kill the old woman and refers to the boy as useless, the director suddenly tells her he doesn't care about that. No, his orders were simply to recover Eugene and leave Shawn's parent alone. By ordering Eugene to kill her, isn't she the one who can't follow simple orders? Woo, now that's a switcheroo. As she desperately tries to justify and explain her actions, the director reminds her that promises are very important to him, and one of the few things their children have imprinted on them. The 3 principles of control that they follow actually have promises as part of them, alongside the absolute principles and the director. Though she's been sufficiently cowed, Rachel still has one burning question. What about the mission to retrieve Shawn then? However, as she notices upon the director's mention of a backup plan, Marie has been hard at work on several phones, spreading some kind of story this whole time. Oh boy, this looks like it's gonna suck for our boy. Sure enough, when Sheen walks into class the next day, is to find everyone giving him a wide berth, not daring to so much as look in his direction. Confused, Sheen even tries to ask around about what's up, but not a single person answers him. It's only after he takes his seat that the class's resident delinquent thugs address him, asking if that is for real. Confused, Sheen asks what the hell they're talking about, to which they show him some photos of him that have been going viral. From a single glance, Sheen can tell they're photoshopped. However, that hasn't stopped people from believing them and labeling him as the ultimate bully, who's not only responsible for what happened to Hein Ho, but has also supposedly been ordering around Yusuf and his lackeys all along. Hell, there's even a crappily edited picture of him hanging out with some gangster dudes. Sheen is completely exasperated by the situation, though even more so he's annoyed by how much the thugs are sucking up to him. When the topic of his supposedly ordering Yusuf to crush Hein Ho comes up, Sheen adamantly declares that that's not true. Unfortunately for him, none of his classmates believe this, not even being able to look him in the eye after what they've seen. On the other hand, the thugs are overjoyed by the appearance of what they can only identify as an alpha for them to follow, while sucking up to him. One of the guys shoves a student, causing him to speak up. As you'd expect, the thug moves to beat the crap out of him for daring to do so, but is stopped by Sheen at the last moment, putting on a show about how he's been holding back. Sheen tells the thugs to come with him and leave these people so he can tell them about himself. As the group leaves, Sheen's classmates start murmuring amongst themselves, with the general consensus being that they were wrong about him not being as bad as the other bullies. Dude, he just offended your sorry butt. In yet another dank alleyway, Sheen sits with the thugs gathered around him and gets the full details of the pictures of him that have been circulating. According to the dimwits, the photo of him bullying Yusuf was posted to the group chat this morning by a new user, a user who left right after dropping all the photos and making some jokes at Sheen's expense too. Sheen pretty much instantly clocks this for the dead mansion trick that it is, but he can't understand why they do this. For now, Sheen decides to play along and plays the part of the secret bully, speaking to the thugs about his potential expulsion and making them promise to help him graduate quietly and without getting caught up in any such nonsense. Walking away, he tells the thugs that the world he's walking in is that of adults, so he has no time for these childish matters. Rather, they, his crew members, should ensure that these rumors don't spread any further. As Sheen expected, the thugs are instantly taken aback by Sheen accepting them into his crew, and they vow to do as he's asked, because I'm sure they'll work out. Unknown to Sheen or any of the thugs, Hein Ho's mother can see them from the entrance of the long alley they're in, and she's as shocked as ever to see her boy interacting with such terrible delinquents. Seeing this, her mind flashes back to the principal's office, and she can't help but wonder if she was wrong. Flashback time, baby. Earlier that morning, Hein Ho's mom insisted to the principal that Sheen would never take part in such a thing as what happened to her child. Seeing the mother's denial, the principal actually then shows her all the edited pictures of Sheen that have been circulating, chipping away even more at her faith in the boy. Finally, the principal goes on to talk about how he believes Sheen was actually the one to start everything, and he speaks on how such children with no familial guidance at home can easily go astray. His final words to Hein Ho's mom are simply that she shouldn't trust a kid like this too much. Let me at him. I'll crack his bald head like an egg. Back in the present, Sheen is walking away from his meeting with the thugs, like to have dealt with the rumor situation. On his way home, he spots none other than the girl from yesterday, Marie, waiting for him in yet another alleyway. As the two face each other, Marie continues to flirtatiously tease Sheen, but he doesn't even acknowledge it, instead asking her the important questions, like why the hell she's trying to ruin his social life. Rather than answering, Marie teases Sheen for how he was acting all tough with the thugs earlier, and even claims that she's just made him more famous than ever. Thoroughly embarrassed, Sheen tells her she's wrong, but Marie's just getting started, speaking next of how the only looks he's getting now are those of fear and contempt from his peers. Well, yeah, thanks to you, butthead. However, as she goes on about the photos, Sheen realizes how much pride she takes in them and proceeds to insult the quality of the editing on the pictures. Almost like a flip's been switched, Marie goes from teasing to downright murderous, firing several shots at Sheen from her hidden gun without any warning. Luckily, Sheen blocks the bullets with his bag and leaps away just in time, yelling at her for acting so crazy. The ensuing altercation between Sheen and Marie sees the two exchanging a crap ton of attacks, Sheen constantly blocking and trying to question her. Growing tired of the farce, Sheen overpowers Marie and drives her to the ground, straddling her as he asks his next questions. Strangely enough though, Marie just has an innocent smile on her face at what she knows is about to happen. From the entrance of the alleyway, a voice screams out at them, asking Sheen just what in the world he's doing. Recognizing the voice, Sheen slowly turns his head with wide, terrified eyes and comes face to face with none other than his mother. As she stands there, horror building up inside, she can only ask Sheen one question. Is he really the one responsible for what happened to her Hein Ho? Ah, damn it, he's so cooked. From where she's lying on the ground, Marie has a sly smile on her face, having planned for this exact scenario beforehand. When Sheen starts struggling to answer the woman's question, Marie breaks free and runs over to her, still playing the part of an innocent schoolgirl. Once she's close to Hein Ho's mom, Marie starts spouting all sorts of bullcrap lies. When Hein Ho tries to step in, his mom furiously tells him to stay right where he is, so she can listen to this girl. Marie continues, talking about how she confronted Sheen, because her brother Eugene came home with bruises on his body and said Sheen caused them. Upon hearing this, Hein Ho's mom can't help but think back on the suspicious scene she woke up to see the other morning, and the words of the principal from earlier. She tells Hein Ho's mom that when she confronted Sheen about her brother's state, he started beating her up as well. Wow, she really thought this through, huh? As Sheen desperately calls out to his mom that these are all lies, Marie discreetly lets out the same cunning smile as before. This is all going exactly according to her plan to get him disowned, and she hasn't even had to touch his so-called parent. Then, out of nowhere, Sheen's rambling is interrupted by his mother smacking him clean across the face, leaving him stunned. Then, with a serious look in her eyes, she tells Sheen to never call her mother again, and more importantly, to never come back here. Right on cue, Rachel appears at the alley's entrance in her old lady disguise, smirking at the boy and telling him it's time to go home. Just like that, Sheen has been disowned, his ownership has been returned to Dead Mansion, and the life he made for himself is over. Back at Dead Mansion, the raving lunatic of a director is going insane with pleasure over Shawn's retrieval, praising Marie for her success. Meanwhile, in the penthouse where the Dead Mansion operatives are staying, Sheen can be seen seated at the dining table, shoveling down all sorts of weird food combinations against his will, all because Rachel wanted to test out her control over him. Right as Sheen is begging her to at least let him drink something, another person rolls onto the scene. And I mean that literally. It's the worst father of the year himself, Byung-woo, here to finalize his deal with Dead Mansion. As both sides stare each other down, Sheen decides to poke some fun at the man and taunts him for his current condition. When Byung-woo starts expressing anger at the boy, Rachel reminds him that their deal is to take Sheen back with them unharmed, in exchange for leaving Yusuf alone. Byung-woo simply turns around with a scoff, telling Rachel that he's a professional, so he'll stick to that deal. Besides, there's another person he can still take revenge on. So he doesn't even need to bother with Sheen himself. Rachel simply tells him to do as he wishes, but she makes sure to remind him. Dead Mansion can have no part in his plans to kill Hein Ho's mother, as they promised not to touch the old woman. Upon hearing these words, Sheen's eyes narrow, and he furiously asks Rachel what she just said. Did they blow his eardrums out or something? Over at Hein Ho's snack shop, the old woman can be seen holding back tears as she prepares food for a customer. Unable to deal with the hurricane of emotions she's feeling, she accidentally slices into her own finger, only worsening her pain. Unbeknownst to her, the customer she's cooking for is one of Byung-woo's men, and he's slowly creeping up on her with a knife while she has her back turned to him. It's only at the last moment that Hein Ho's mom is quite literally saved by the bell, receiving a phone call that has her eyes widening in shock. Without a second thought, the old woman tells the customer to eat whatever he wants and races outside, moving as fast as she can, chanting that her son has finally woken up. Over in the hospital, Hein Ho awakens, and the last thing he can remember is yelling at his mom, causing him to desperately call for her so he can apologize. As if answering his call herself, his mother bursts into the room at that exact moment, rushing to his side and clasping his hand in her own. As the mother and son break down in tears together, the minion from back at the shop observes them and reports back to Byung-woo. Now that parent and child are together, Byung-woo decides to change his plans. Those two are to be left alive for now, because he plans to handle them personally. Right in front of this brat, he's kidnapped away from Rachel. Wait, what? When the hell did that happen? How the hell did that happen? In a quick flashback sequence, we see the moment Rachel was first advised against dealing with someone as untrustworthy as Byung-woo Constructions, a warning she ignored and is now regretting. Her lips split and blood dripping down it, she slams a chair into the wall, while screaming in rage about how Byung-woo and his men dared to kidnap her Shawn. Jesus lady, curb your yonder. Over with Sheen, Byung-woo is taking his time talking down to the boy, insulting him and manhandling him. Now that he knows the full truth of the boy's situation and Dead Mansion's workings, turning away from Sheen, Byung-woo gives him something more disturbing than anything so far to think about. What if he were to buy the boy from Dead Mansion and order him to kill that old hag and her son? Byung-woo burst out into manic laughter after saying this and seeing Sheen's violent reaction. Getting closer to Sheen, the older man gets within an inch of his face and tells him to save those expressions for later. After all, pretty soon he's going to tear those two into pieces. Did he just hold a word grudge? Byung-woo goes on to taunt Sheen a bit more about being unable to do anything without orders and proceeds to leave the room, heading straight for his target. Over in Hein Ho's room, the boy watches his mother cutting apples for him, all the while fully focused on her sliced open thumb. Though she tries to reassure the boy, Hein Ho's mom decides to go out and get a bandage herself, since he won't rest till she does. When she steps out of the hospital room, though, it's to find total darkness, and not a single soul in sight from the staff. Right as she's standing in front of the counter, wondering where everyone's gone, a suited man with glasses appears behind her and knocks the woman out with a chop to her neck. Oh hey, it's Secretary Four Eyes, cool. Meanwhile, Sheen is forced to watch as Byung-woo's men load up the woman in their car and prepare to go for Hein Ho next. As for Byung-woo himself, he has made his way to Hein Ho's room, which he enters and proceeds to introduce himself, with a dozen men standing behind him. Though he puts on a friendly air at first, that fades away in all of a few seconds. Instead, Byung-woo tells Hein Ho that he's here to finish the job his son left incomplete. Bound to his bed with a broken leg, Hein Ho can only stare at the men with a terrified expression at what is sure to come next. Luckily for Hein Ho, there's someone else on the scene who has a grudge against his would-be kidnappers. From the roof of the building across the street from the hospital, Rachel shoots a zipline into the wall right above Hein Ho's window. From there, it's only a matter of seconds before she's bursting through the said window and laying the smackdown onto several hired goons. As she does this, Rachel has an ugly and furious expression, while demanding to know where the hell her Shawn is. Again with that possessive crap. I'm not sure who's worse at this point. Curiously enough, Byung-woo simply watches with a smile as she effortlessly ragdolls and slashes apart his men. Even when she's eventually caught in a bear hug, she breaks free with a vicious headbutt and tosses him at another goon. Seeing that she isn't going to be stopped, Byung-woo has his men carry Hein Ho out with them as he speeds away in his wheelchair. No, you heard that right, this thing handles like a Lamborghini apparently. Before they can get too far, Rachel bursts out of the room, ready to put Byung-woo down. But the hall is suddenly filled with enough men to be a challenge even for her. Wielding all sorts of weapons, from knives to a damn chainsaw, the men advance. In response to this, Rachel simply pulls open her trench coat, revealing multiple guns stored in her. Somewhere, I guess. Now, while Rachel manages to get a bullet barrage off at first and take out some goons, the reality of the situation is she's heavily outnumbered. Worse still, Secretary Four Eyes decides to use that moment to reveal his cast as a fake, shooting a gun straight at Rachel's thigh from inside said cast. Unfortunately, it's immediately after this that Four Eyes makes the worst mistake he possibly could have. Not only does he openly declare that they'll kill Rachel, he confirms this to Sheen, the legend who's operating under the three principles with Dead Mansion as his current parent. Sure enough, as soon as he confirms Rachel's life is in danger, he's able to break free of his bindings and punch Four Eyes lights out. With a blank expression, he explains that the third principle shall now be upheld. Dropping the man to the floor, he turns to the hall full of goons and declares that here and now, he will break through the current situation and go beyond. Wait, when did he get trained by All Might? Guess I must have missed that part. As Sheen walks forward with purpose, the goon whose hold he broke out of to beat down Four Eyes rushes at him, angered by his insolence. In response, Sheen simply interlocks the fingers of his incoming hand with his own to trap the man, and punches his jaw out of place with his other fist. That's going to hurt for the next 1,000 mornings. Unused to such dominance, the goon starts crying about his teeth, which only prompts Sheen to hit him again, and then again, to knock him clean out. On the other side of the hall, Rachel realizes what's happening with Shawn, while she shoots some more goons full of lead. Except she doesn't really. It's just her yonderous side coming out yet again, and convincing her that the reason Shawn's fighting right now is purely for her sake. Yeah, fat chance lady. As for Sheen himself, the boy continues to absolutely body Byung-woo's goons, without so much as breaking a sweat, now that his limiters are off. He dodges under a steel pipe, kicks the attacker's jaw upwards, and reaches across the counter to try and find a weapon. The goons mistake this for him trying to hide and race after him, and that's a grave mistake in itself. Right as the one in front gets over the counter, a syringe is thrown straight into his eye with pinpoint precision, rendering the man immobile from the pain. Standing there with a smirk on his face and several syringes clenched between his fingers, Sheen promises to make this as painless as possible. Leaping off the counter, he launches each of the syringes at the goons in front of them, hitting all of his targets dead on. When one of them tries to retaliate, Sheen just grabs his face and knocks him out via a destined meeting with the ground. Despite outnumbering him by such a wide margin, the goons are starting to back up in fear of Sheen. That is, until one of them bursts onto the scene with the chainsaw from earlier, determined to turn Sheen into a shish kebab. Even Sheen realizes that he can't handle something like that, and he ends up running from the chainsaw and rounding a corner. That's where he spots a gurney and gets an idea. Moments later, as the chainsaw-wielding thug rounds the same corner Sheen did, the younger man slams the gurney into the man's legs and forces him to fall onto it, all while just barely dodging the tip of the saw. He definitely saw his life flash before him just then. Within seconds, Sheen already has the man fully strapped and restrained to the gurney, with his hands forcibly kept on the chainsaw to keep running. Just like that, Sheen's taken his enemy's weapon and turned it into a Chariot of Death for himself. Sheen turns the gurney towards the rest of the goons with the spinning chainsaw facing them, and without another second's hesitation, he launches it forward. Thug after thug is torn apart, limbs severed and flesh ripped to shreds as his makeshift pakita goes to town. Eventually, even the chainsaw snaps, leaving just the thug strapped to it and Sheen in the hallway. And so, when Sheen holds a blade to the man's throat and demands to know where Hein Ho and his mom are, a man all but pisses himself. Before he can offer an answer though, Rachel shows up and the Dead Mansion operatives start discussing the situation. When Sheen mentions chasing after Hein Ho and his mom, Rachel shuts him down instantly, stating that she only came here to retrieve him, the property of Dead Mansion. That woman and her son are of no concern to Rachel. Though he's furious at her words, Sheen understands the situation perfectly and decides to use his own knowledge and skills to his advantage. Moving towards Rachel, he grabs a bandage roll and tells her she's mistaken about his goal here. He kneels before her on one knee, telling her with a loving smile that he did this all for her. He did this to protect her, and as he bandages her thigh, he declares that the scum who dared to touch their Dead Mansion's instructor cannot be allowed to live. God, I wish I was that bandage right now. What? We were all thinking about it. Being the ultra yandere that she is, Sheen's words hit every chord in Rachel just right to make her play along to his tune. As she internally squeals over how great Shawn is, the boy himself nervously wonders if his bait worked, or if she's seen through him. Luckily, her obsession with him trumps her common sense, and Rachel agrees. It's time to go tear those douchebags to pieces. Meanwhile, Hein Ho's mother can be seen waking up in an unfamiliar room. The only other person there being Yusuf's father, Byung-woo. In his heavily bandaged state, Hein Ho's mom is terrified and steps back, unable to recognize him. As she starts questioning the whole situation, Byung-woo tells her he doesn't have time to explain everything, but she has to listen to him. For starters, this place is their children's classroom, and the desk she's sitting at, covered in graffiti and rude messages from other students and bullies, is Hein Ho's desk. Byung-woo uses this to appeal to her parental side, taking off his bandages and revealing his identity, all while claiming that he too is a victim of Park Sheen, along with his son. The rich bastard peddles his made-up sob story about all the supposed wrongdoings Sheen has exacted on them, slowly pushing Hein Ho's mother toward the edge. Finally, as his story reaches its climax, Byung-woo hobbles out of his wheelchair, falls to the ground, and swears to get revenge on Sheen for his son. Hein Ho's mom struggles to help him up, and the man insists that revenge is the way when she admits her uneasiness with the idea of taking matters into their own hands. Standing up with her help, Byung-woo tells her once more that no matter who they tell, nothing will be done to Park Sheen. Their only path now is to end the boy themselves, a task for which he places the gleaming knife into the woman's hand and promises her that they will get justice. Please don't fall for it, Granny. This dude's clearly a butt. Back at Dead Mansion, the director holds in his hands the reports from Rachel on the events so far, and he is furious with a capital F as far as he's concerned. Byung-woo Constructions can rot in hell for daring to touch their precious Shawn. Speaking to Rachel and her group over their comms, the director tells them to show these fools the price for messing with them, and Sheen in particular is given the task of showing them his true skills. Or at least he would be, if the numbskull hadn't forgotten his earpiece back at home and missed all of that. Both Eugene and Marie are quick to show their exasperation and disappointment in the so-called legend, and they don't hesitate to voice that either. Trying to change the topic, Sheen mentions that this is his own school and asks them if they're really sure this is the place, to which Marie assures him. The traffic cameras show this as Byung-woo's last location. Upon hearing this, Sheen offhandedly mentions that that's good, since it means Hein Ho and his mom are here too. Rachel alone catches that and only stares after Sheen's back with a blank look rather than saying anything. To avoid alerting their allies, she simply reminds Sheen their goal is to eliminate their enemy, not any other useless thing he may be thinking of. Clenching his fist with determination, Sheen simply tells her he knows. All he has to do is go in and destroy everything. Unbeknownst to the squad, their every movement is being monitored via the school's CCTV, brought online by a pair of ripped men who seem to know much about Dead Mansion and Rachel. The Beefire man annoyedly reminds his partner not to underestimate these kids, as they're a whole other level of mercenary, just like they themselves are. From the entrance of the room, Byung-woo's wheelchair rolls in, and he promises to pay whatever they ask as long as they can get rid of these kids. Even as he says this though, Byung-woo constantly probes them for how they'll do it, if they really even can, and where their third team member is. All questions which frustrate Dimitri, the beefy guy, are enough to glare at his employer and remind him that he said they can handle this. Over with the Dead Mansion squad, Sheen is beginning to grow suspicious of how empty and quiet the building has been so far. Rechecking her phone, Marie confirms that this is definitely where their targets came from, but for some reason, she can't access any of the school's CCTV, since they'll have to do this the old-fashioned way instead. The group split up at Eugene's suggestion. Eugene moves to check out the new building. Marie heads towards the security room, and Sheen is left stuck with Rachel, since he doesn't have an earpiece to stay in contact with them. A fact which both the younger kids make sure to berate him for once again. Once the others are gone though, Sheen realizes what exactly he signed himself up for here. A realization that's triggered when he hears Rachel mumbling like a maniac about how she's got some alone time with her Shawn, prompting him to shout out in hopes of finding some thugs. That's just enough to snap Rachel out of it and initiate a talk which she thinks he needs. She can tell from his expression earlier, his words, and his actions that he still hasn't given up on Hein Ho and his mom. However, Rachel once again tells him he should give up on them, and this time, she appeals to his feelings for them and tells him that they'll always be in danger as long as he's around them. Seeing the boy's confusion, she lays out the facts for him, showing him clearly that everything they've gotten mixed up in these past few days is solely because of Sheen's involvement in their lives. As that reality comes crashing down on his head, Sheen almost collapses into himself with guilt. Rachel makes sure to push this advantage by getting close to the boy and telling him his only true home is the dead mansion. Luckily though, before Sheen can fully lose himself to despair, his instincts kick in and he shoves Rachel away from him, to dodge a bullet that flies between them. Turning to the assailant, Rachel's face suddenly falls into a worried expression as she asks what he is doing here. When Sheen asks who the hell this guy is, she explains that this is the second in command of the notorious Russian mercenary group known as Barefoot, and I thought I was bad at naming stuff. As Dmitri walks forward with his gun still raised, he addresses Rachel and speaks to her like an old friend. The woman, however, is far more concerned with the unconscious body of Marie, hanging over Dmitri's shoulder. Said mercenary simply drops the girl to the ground roughly, stating that he roughed her up a bit since she was poking around where she shouldn't. Rachel can barely hold back her hatred for this man, as they exchange some barbed words, ending with an offer from Dmitri to let everything here go if Rachel goes on a date with him. Oh, okay. He's just a roided out simp. Disgusted by the man, Rachel promptly tells him to F off and lets loose a barrage of bullets at him, forcing Dmitri to take cover. From there, both sides start unleashing a storm of lead at each other while staying behind cover. In the midst of this, Rachel tries to give Sheen an order, only to find that he's no longer next to her. Over with Dmitri, who's currently reloading. While leaning against a short wall, Sheen reveals himself on just the other side, mere inches apart from the Russian. All he says is that the man has no chance of taking out Rachel with his skills, though that only emboldens the man. As Dmitri tries to rush out of cover faster than Sheen and shoot him, the boy is already inside his guard, holding his firing hand up toward the roof, leaping over the wall and bringing Dmitri down to the ground. Within moments, they've gone from opposite sides of the wall to Dmitri having his back shoved into the floor and Sheen's balled fist in his face. And yet, despite that, as Sheen's fist comes away, the man's face is revealed to be unharmed apart from a nosebleed, and he's smirking at the boy with pure joy. The end, for now.